It's been said that Closer to the Heart by Rush is Canada's Stairway to Heaven in ways that go beyond the technical. And it struck a chord worldwide to audiences in a way that Rush's songs hadn't before. There's a folk vibe to this song, a message about finding personal balance and how doing that puts the world at large in a better kind of order. It was the first Rush song to have lyrics penned by an outside co-writer, and it became a hit. Geddy Lee said it was as close as they ever got to a pop song. But who was that outside writer? Let's get into Closer to the Heart in this episode of the Behind the Song podcast. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe and let us know in the comments. Released in 1977 as the lead single from Rush's fifth album, A Farewell to Kings, Closer to the Heart is one of the shortest songs in the Rush catalog, clocking in at only 2 minutes and 53 seconds. That fact helped it get on the radio and hit the charts in Canada, the US, and the UK, where it even went into the top 40. As any Rush fan knows, the band's late great drummer, Neil Peart, a.k.a. The Professor, was responsible for most of Rush's lyrics since shortly after he joined the band. Bassist Geddy Lee and guitarist Alex Lifeson were happy to leave that task to Peart for the most part, while they focused on composing the music. The three formed a rare artistic partnership of mutual trust and real friendship, always in service of the songs. And that trust is important anytime, but especially when you're writing songs inspired by things ranging from the film Citizen Kane and the poem Kubla Khan by Coleridge, and the origin of black holes and dystopian futures and science fiction, all among them influences lyrically on the A Farewell to Kings album. So how was it that an outside writer ended up contributing to one of their best-loved songs, and who was he? Closer to the Heart was co-written by Peter Talbot, a writer, musician, and sometime radio DJ who lived on Vashon Island outside of Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. Geddy Lee recalls him in interviews as being a real West Coast hippie type and can't recall how they first crossed paths. But Neil Peart and Talbot soon found that they were simpatico about their worldview, and the two became close friends. Talbot began giving poems that he'd written to Peart whenever the band were in the area. Peart told Circus magazine in 1977 that the first verse and the title of one of those Peter Talbot poems became Closer to the Heart. The song links directly with his lyrics in the title track to A Farewell to Kings, and Peart has said that it offers solutions to the problems in the title track. With its slandered halls of justice and cities full of hatred, redeemed in Closer to the Heart by the power of balanced, peaceful conduct among mankind. In fact, the last line of the song, A Farewell to Kings, is, "Can't we find the minds to lead us closer to the heart?" And in Closer to the Heart, the lyrics written by Peart and Talbot offer a response. The lyrics go like this: "And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart." In A Farewell to Kings, Peart writes that in the future, history will remember us as having been beaten down, following the path of least resistance, where demons dressed as kings scoff at the wise. In the first verse in Closer to the Heart, Peart and Talbot propose that the people holding places of power are the ones responsible for changing this, reversing the course of destruction. And then the next two verses pay respect to creators, artists and blacksmiths, philosophers and plowmen, thinkers and people who work a trade. In other words, everyone who works to create something in their lives. The blacksmith and the artist reflect it in their art. They forge their creativity closer to the heart. Philosophers and plowmen each must know his part to sow a new mentality closer to the heart. And the song ends with an interesting concept that one job is just as important as another, in that a ship's captain will always need someone to chart out the course, and vice versa. You can be the captain, and I will draw the chart, sailing into destiny, closer to the heart. The answer given in Closer to the Heart is that everyone has their place in the world, and that when we become harmonious with our fellow man, we move into a new, more ideal reality. It just requires changing how we think and how we act. Neil Peart was called the professor because he was a literary man, an author of books himself and a voracious reader, in addition to being one of the best drummers to ever sit behind a kit. In the documentary following Rush's final tour, he said that one of his daily habits was to ask himself, what is the most excellent thing I can do today? And in the lyrics of this song and many others in the Rush catalog, that excellence isn't limited to jobs like being in a famous rock band, but to every walk of life. And that essence is echoed in the lyrics of Closer to the Heart. As for Peter Talbot, he joins Pi Dubois in the really rarefied air of being a lyrical contributor to Rush songs while never being a member of the band. Dubois, a Canadian poet and lyricist, is credited on what is probably the band's biggest hit, Tom Sawyer, and other Rush songs. Both Tom Sawyer and Closer to the Heart were two of the 5 Rush songs inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. Not much is known about Peter Talbot outside of his collaboration with Neil Peart and Rush on this song. He's a mystery, a man who wrote his way onto the pages of rock history and then disappeared. He was also mentioned in the liner notes on the band's 1976 live album, All the World's a Stage, when Rush thanked Peter Talbot and the Vashon Islanders. Maybe one of the things that he and Peart found themselves to relate to one another on was an avoidance of the press. Either way, he helped shape one of Rush's best-known songs, an odd, yet most excellent ballad for the band that was in such demand that when Rush stopped including it in their live shows for a while, they had to bring it back into the set. And after Rush disbanded, following Peart's passing from cancer in 2020, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson performed Closer to the Heart with members of the band Primus at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado as part of the South Park 25th anniversary concert in 2022. It was their first performance together since Peart's passing. Closer to the Heart is a fan favorite that kind of says everything about Rush. Such good friends in their personal lives and in creating the music they made together. A song at its core about trusting the talents and better virtues of our fellow man to make the world a better place, all set to an impeccable melody. Is this the most quintessential Rush song? If not, what is? Something to think about. Until next time. I'm Janda, and this has been Behind the Song. If you like this episode, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and check it out on TikTok too. Special thanks as always to Christian Lane for the music you hear on these podcast episodes. You can find me on the air at 97.1 FM The Drive in Chicago and at WDRV.FM. On the way, much more classic rock and roll.